Good evening, everybody. I am Don Kovac, and welcome to the Nerd Ensemble. I'm just going to pretend to do that intro again because I totally forgot what I'm doing. Good evening. I quit. All right.
Good evening.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to what I think is episode 23 of the Nerd Ensemble. Nerd Ensemble, because we don't have the. That's okay. We don't need the. I am one of your co-hosts. I am Don Kovac, and I'm here with my other awesome and much more awesome co-host, Mr. Brett Dean. Brett, how are you, dude?
Hi, how are you, Don? I'm doing good. I'm just glad to be back. I'm glad to be back. I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad you're here. And I'm not more awesome than you.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Yes, we're back. And as you can see, we've spruced up the joint a little bit here.
Oh, yeah. I think she knows the name. Dolores? Dolores is back there operating the switchboards to take your calls, get you into the chat here with us. Great job, Dolores.
We need those.
Highly recommended.
Indeed. And she's very helpful and supportive of us in our work here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's been a while since we've had a chat. It looks like the last show was on November 4th. And that was a while ago. That was a long while ago. But things happen.
It's the holidays. Even when it wasn't, it was close. It was the Thanksgiving. We were going to try to do a Thanksgiving show, but it couldn't happen because, I don't know, we were all... the tryptophan, it got us. I mean, got us big.
Man, no kidding. It did.
I think I've been on a tryptophan high, or would you call it a low? A tryptophan low.
I'll go with low.
Yeah, for like a half month now.
Yeah, with there being no daylight ever, and
it seems especially dim this year, doesn't it? I feel like there's something wrong with the sun. I do. I feel like there's something wrong with the sun this year.
It flew south for the winter.
Yes, it's very dark. I'm not at all happy about that. Anywho, what'll brighten up our day, Don?
Well, that was a professional transition right there, friends.
Yep.
So tonight we've got ons and ends, and we're debuting a new segment that we've got coming up for you in a little bit. Brett and I are definitely huge Apple nerds and tech nerds, which is the genesis of this show. So we're going to start out with that portion of the show. And when we last spoke way back in November, I had just gone about acquiring the new 14-inch M1 Pro Macintosh notebook. And I've had that thing for a month already. That's a long time. And matter of fact, that's what I'm talking to you from now. I don't know. Can they see the 1080p goodness? Can we even do 1080p?
Oh my God, that's what's different about seeing you this time. I forgot about that.
Well, because when we last did the show, I did it from my M1 Pro.
My God, is it brighter? I thought you just got younger or something. Holy crap.
Well, that certainly didn't happen. I did get a haircut and a beard trim today, but
okay. Well, that's all good. That's good.
That's all. That's the only difference, other than the tech here. And I've been using this for my work, recording videos to my students and whatnot, and it definitely does make a difference. But I was wondering, now that we've upgraded our streaming technologies here, I was curious if we were going to be able to stream in 1080p at all. But it doesn't appear that way.
No. Let's tinker around because it's good radio for tinkering. So what I had to do is, because we're on this slightly new and upgraded system here for
Mm-hmm.
broadcasting to all of you tonight,
Yes.
what I had to do was basically reset everything. And so, do you have a settings button, Don? I had to go in and
I do.
repick 720p. That's as high as we can go unless we start paying lots and lots more. We should set up a Patreon so people can help us. Oh my God, that looks even better. Look at that.
Yeah, I realized you were right. I didn't have it set to 720. So,
But you were
and
getting the benefits of like it like brightens up your face, you know, without you having to be in perfect light. And that looked good. Now you turned off your audio, so I don't know if that.
yes, because I just also realized that I neglected to use my microphone the right way. Use my microphone in front of me.
Okay. Well, that's a testament to those microphones on the new MacBook Pros then, because that sounded almost the same. You get a tiny bit more bass with that really expensive and nice Shure microphone that you got there, but
it's an Audio Technica now, actually.
Oh, okay, Audio Technica. Well, anyway, get a little more bass with that, but those other ones sounded good. I thought you were.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't even realize. I mean, I can't hear myself. I don't have my voice in my ears, which I probably should if I'm going to go about calling myself a broadcaster of any sort. But here, I'm going to click this real quick where we're tinkering here. I'll click that again. Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Okay, so now, oddly enough, I don't have. I only have you in one ear at the moment for some reason.
Well, that makes absolutely no sense. Do you have spatial audio on?
Don't.
Folks, there's just so much cool stuff now available.
There really is. There really is. Oh, there we go.
And we're just getting used to it all.
Hello.
Hello.
And it apparently just does not want me. How's my sound now? Am I okay?
It's pretty good. Pretty good.
Well, good
then. Let's see what's going on. Oh, yeah.
We'll just deal with it for this. Anyway. Wait, now it's better. Now it's stereo. Okay, great. So, last show I showed you my unboxing video of the. But anyway, so yeah, it looks like we'd have to pay a lot more money. Is that what we'd have to do to get 1080p?
Oh, so much more money. All the monies. We'd have to pay all the monies.
That's not helpful.
No,
we don't want to pay all the monies. We can live with 720.
Yeah.
And some of the money should go to buying Brett like a ring light or something. You know.
Please. I feel like I'm in a dark cave here. But that's okay.
Yeah, I mean it could be a lot worse. Don't get me wrong.
I do need a light.
Yeah, I just use the lights on my desk. Fortunately.
So folks, yeah, we're experimenting a little bit tonight because we've had to reset some things. What's cool is we're on YouTube right now too. We're simultaneously broadcasting. We've never done that before.
This is why we decided it was time. It was time to take this show to the next level. Not necessarily in terms of content, certainly not in terms of looks, but everything else, one thing at a time.
One giant leap for mankind. Done.
Yes, and podcast kind.
Indeed.
Yes. So bear with us as we refresh everything. We kind of tidy up the place a little bit. It'll get there. We promise. Next time we'll do more in our pre-show. But that's not why you came.
Dolores and the two of us, we are all three working so hard.
You should
to get
see.
things.
You should see what's going on behind the scenes.
I know she's operating that ENIAC table back there faster than anybody.
Hey, that's why she gets paid the big bucks.
Right. I mean, those little 2-inch screens that she's looking at. I mean, she just keen eyesight. You go, Dolores.
Thanks for keeping the ship running.
Mm-hmm.
Anywho's, so we're like I said, we're going to talk a little bit about some tech stuff first here. And of course, I've been using this M1 Pro, like I said, for over about a month now, and it's a really good computer. It certainly fixes a lot of the faults. You're seeing how much better I look in 720p on this this 1080 webcam with the Apple's image signal processor built into the M1 Pro chip. And it is
And
certainly,
I think just like HDR, like that's almost the bigger story than the higher resolution, you know? The fact that it can get in there and brighten you up and all that stuff. I'm in such a dark room right now, unfortunately. Actually, 1 second. But it will take a mediocre image and enhance it and make it look better, and by gosh, it actually works.
It really does. It does make a nice difference, and I, to this point, hadn't seen it in the same way, and it really does. You can see the treadmill over there, and
Oh, right.
the medicines down over there.
Yep, you can see a lot more
there. So it certainly getting that much more widescreen view, which I don't necessarily want, but you know, there's ways we can fix that, namely moving the table back some. So we'll work on that. Plus, what
else do you like about it?
Well, so the screen is great. It's a huge step up. I put it next to my my entry level M1 Pro from 2020, and like it's akin to going from non-HD to HD, or going from HD to 4K. Like it's just that much nicer. I agree with the folks that have said that the ProMotion isn't as big of a deal on here. I agree. In using it for a month now, there's nothing about it that really changes the game for me. It's nice, but it's not a reason in and of itself. It in and of itself is not a reason to go out and buy this computer. So, if in my opinion, I mean, unless you've got money to burn, then hey, have fun, buy a few. But it's not in that sense. But the quality of the screen, the HDR contrast on here, 100% really makes a huge difference. The sound, just listening through the speakers, huge improvement. So if you've not heard that, it really is. And that if you're somebody that listens to videos, watches, I don't know, TV on it or whatever shows on it, it'll sound great for that. No worries. Music, probably better choices out there, but it'll do just fine in a pinch. Certainly better than any other laptop on the market. So, well, with one small exception, but we'll get to that. And like the portability, it's about the same size as the 13-inch, so it still fits in my bag just fine. No concerns there. Takes up about the same amount of space. Half pound heavier. I haven't found that to be an issue, and I take it with me every day, so no issues there to me. I like the new Touch ID button on it a lot. It's definitely
You do a clever thing with that Touch ID button, which is to make your index finger the Touch ID finger. I don't know how many people out there have also thought of that. But coming from the iPhone and everything, my instinct always has been to use my thumb for that. But that puts your hand in an awkward position. Had you read that somewhere, or was that something that you came up with on your own?
yeah, it's just when I can't remember. I think it was last year when I got the 2019 16-inch MacBook Pro, and I took that for a test drive. That was the first Touch ID based MacBook I'd had for any length of time, and it just seemed natural. It when I had a Touch ID based iPhone 2, I would put both thumb and pointer in there, and actually on both hands, just so that way, most situations I'm covered. But so I actually on this I only have my right hand pointer finger. That's it. And because I like the bigger size of it, it makes it even easier to find. It's, of course, oddly enough, the only key on the entire computer that is not backlit.
It would be cool if they came up with something like, the icon or the graphic that they use for the thumbprint. If it were to light up with that, that's a free idea for you, Apple, right there. Actually, it's not free. Could you just send me just a little? You could send me one of those polishing cloths, or maybe even I'll save it for the new iMac. You can send me a new 27-inch iMac when those come out. Anyway, make the little thumb thing light up. Make the little Touch ID thing light up with a fingerprint. Oh, that would look so cool, wouldn't it?
It would. I think that would cause some issues because the entire thing is a sensor. I'm guessing the camera inside of the I'm guessing it would mess with that. But the one of the very few nice things about the Touch Bar based MacBook Pros is that it did have the little arrow that would point to it.
Absolutely. So that was one of the best features of the Touch Bar. Yeah.
That would help to make that clearer in darker scenarios. So again, that was one of the very few things to miss on the Touch Bar. So hey, whatever, no worries.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's a nice step up. I've done some Logic stuff. I've done a little bit of video stuff, if I recall. It's definitely faster for that. I've not run into anything where, this being the 16 gig model, 16 gigs of unified memory, I've not run into anything where that's been an issue. I have played Minecraft on it, and it runs pretty well. Certainly better than my entry-level MacBook Pro. So there's no complaints on that either. It's a really good computer, and it's just a level up from the base. It's the 10 core CPU, 16 core GPU, 1 terabyte in space gray. It would be a definite step up from my entry level Pro. Is it $1,000 step up? Well, depends on what you're doing. If it's just a browsing surfing computer, it's not really worth it. If it's a work machine and something that you're going to really push it more, say, some games that wouldn't work great at an M1 or Logic or Final Cut, those kinds of things, Adobe products, sure, it'll definitely be a nice step up. And with the better screen, particularly for video or photo editing, it will give you a nicer look there. So it's a great computer. It addressed most of the thing. I like having the MagSafe on there again.
Oh my gosh, how great is it to have that back?
Yeah, it's really nice, no doubt. And then to have although I don't really honestly charge with it very often, believe it or not. I've got USB-C cables
Right,
everywhere I
we've
need
gotten so
them.
used to that. Did it come with the MagSafe charger?
Yeah. And
Oh,
so
thank goodness. Okay, good.
and I think I showed this in my unboxing video, but
Mhm.
the brick is USB-C out, and the cable itself is a braided USB-C to MagSafe. So
Brilliant.
you can pop any old,
Mhm.
USB-C cable on it or whatever. But of course, the fast charging is going to be best with the MagSafe. Um, and it's got the little light on there just like it always did. Although, and I mentioned this in the unboxing, but weird omission that Apple only made a silver finished MagSafe connector, even for the space gray computer that I'm sitting in front of.
A little
So
weird, a little
very
weird.
weird.
I gotcha. I gotcha.
Lack of attention to detail there. Small
Mhm.
thing, but it's like surprise and delight. That's a surprise, but not as much delight. Um, but
Yeah.
super small beans. Um, Sidecar on it is rock solid. It's great. Um, so
Speaking
it's
of
great.
sidecar, when is universal control coming through? I
Um, I'm pretty sure it's not coming this year at this point, because if it ain't out,
I thought it was coming in 15 dot something or no,
um,
12 dot.
I've not heard anything, but maybe I mean, I've not heard anything about it. And granted, I haven't gone out and looked, but I
Mhm.
would have. I know several of the shows I listen to, they talk about it. And it's like everybody's like, eh. So, um,
Mhm.
but
Yeah, that's a
so
little
if
disappointing.
yeah, as long as it's not air power, then I think we'll be okay.
Right.
Um, at any rate, so and definitely if you can get the educator's discount, it does bring this down to a much more reasonable, well, a little bit more reasonable cost for
The
folks. So
cost is a weird quandary because I feel like the M1, the first round of M1s were so great on price, especially when you looked at those and you saw that they were competing with the upper end machines. And you're looking at with Black Friday discounts, an M1 MacBook Air that you could fully stack out for 1,200 bucks, or very well spec out for 1,200 bucks, and that's going to compete with at least a current high end iMac or low end Mac or Mac Pro. And so yours now trounces those things, but that's a big step up in price. And I feel like one is a major bargain, and the other one, which is, I used to consider myself uh if not a pro adjacent user. That's a pretty pricey box. You know what I mean? Like one's a deal. The Air, the 13-inch MacBook Pro, those are a deal. They're a steal, in fact. But the MacBook Pro and I'm starting to worry about the cost of the larger iMac next year. So I don't know.
yeah, it's those things are not going to be cheap. The
Mhm.
whatever this next iMac or iMac Pro, whatever they call it, the replacement for your computer,
Mhm.
especially if it has mini LED screen, if it's got, the the Jade 2D, Jade 2C, the double M1 Max
Mhm.
option in there. Yeah, that's gonna be it's gonna be pricey. Um, but then again, if you think of it this way, if you're talking about like, okay, I'm gonna like mid-spec or high-end spec that thing,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you're gonna need that compared to like the lower end model might even replace your current 27-inch in terms of performance. But yeah, I mean, this is a huge change. I mean, this screen is totally different, and it's a lot better than what we've seen before. And um, we're just we're paying the Apple tax, of course, because it's Apple, but we're also paying down the R&D that went into making this machine,
Mm-hmm.
and that's something that we can't forget.
Well, that's just it. Yeah, that first MacBook Air was a previous design. That first MacBook Pro was a previous design. They had all the data on the thermals and all the other engineering inside. There was pretty much a reuse. Oh my god, this 10 core Intel iMac that I'm using um, has been around since I think 2013, late 2013. Uh,
Maybe even 2020. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right.
there might be a non-retina version, I think, going back to 2012 on this design.
Yeah.
And you know, it's a testament to the design that it's held up this long, but it's 2021. I mean, we're almost 10 years into this form factor. They've squeezed every bit of R&D dollars out of it that you could have, and now it's almost silly in some of its primitiveness. So
Yes.
yeah, there's a price bump coming, but you know how long Apple tends to stick with their designs. Now, I'm not saying they should do that, and I hope they don't. I hope they're going to fast track the form factor upgrades to match what they're doing with processors. That would be nice.
It would. You're right, and as you like you said, they've certainly eked every ounce of out of that design, and it's just been, as the computer went from this big thing that was a spinning hard drive and all this stuff, and all the way through that, and now everything's on a chip. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, or almost in the case of yours, but certainly in this thing here, this design is going to be going to stay around a while.
Mm-hmm.
And as the chips get more and more powerful,
Yeah.
M2, M3, whatever, this, I think the same guts on this is going to be big. So like the computer you're going to get in 3 years is going to
Mhm.
be even another big step up compared to what I have in
Oh
front of
yeah.
me today.
I think we're in a new, like, we're gonna have to reevaluate Moore's law kind of situation. Because I think Apple with these M chips is just gonna go nuts now. There's not gonna be waiting years for paradigm shifts and speed and things like that. It's like buckle up, get on board because the train's gonna be moving really fast.
If they can get the supplies they need,
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
then it's, I mean, you would think that that's what's going to happen. Why else? I mean, how many of these Macs have been held back over the years because Intel couldn't deliver chips? It
Yeah.
wasn't always Intel, but it was often noted as an Intel issue.
Mhm.
So
Right.
now that it's an in-house thing, they're working with TMSC,
Mhm.
TSMC, sorry. Um, they should be able to make this. But then again, the question, and this is another show, but do they need to? Do they need to refresh these every year with if it's as simple as a processor change? I mean,
Well,
you would
let's talk
think.
about our other passion, cars. There's some parallel there because if you look at this approximate size of a car, though the internals keep changing and getting better. For example, a muscle car V8 1960s, it could make, maybe 220 horsepower, and that was crazy. And now you have 4 cylinders in a much smaller form factor that can make more horsepower, way better torque. Um, but even though those form factors have changed a little bit, and everybody idolizes the cars of the 50s and early 60s, they're still approximately the same size. I don't think there's so much that's going to change in terms of size. Like we've all gone through that thing now. All the companies, especially Apple, have gone through that thing where we're going to make it as thin as possible, and it almost became unusable. There were so many drawbacks. Everybody has figured out that isn't worth it. That isn't worth the amount of drawbacks that you have to go through to carry a bag full of dongles and cords and things like that, which you ultimately lose. It's like Apple, other companies, get a clue. You lose that stuff. And maybe they count on it. The cynical part of my brain says maybe they count on us to lose that stuff, so we pay $80 for a stupid dongle, whatever. But they know we all hate it. And so now you have things coming back like a thicker design. You have an HDMI port that's back. You have an SD card reader that's back. You have, MagSafe. When the Mac Mini was revised a year ago or a couple of years ago with the M1 chip, USB-A ports. I mean, a recognition that people still use those things. That would have been a great time to ditch that if they were of that mindset. So it's not that the form factor has to change, but there is an element of, like cars, you have to have a little bit of showbiz in there. There has to be a little bit of splash and a little bit of, we redesigned it because we could, or this is the new trend, or this is some new thought on ergonomics that we have to include. I mean, cars have all gone through that with aerodynamics and gas mileage and things like that. But if you think about the approximate size and shape of like 80s Camaro is roughly the same footprint, though maybe lighter and made of fiberglass, as a 54 a 55 Bel Air. Then maybe that's a little bit bigger, but approximately it's the same size. So cars haven't changed that much in size because they can't. You still need to build it around a human being, and I think that's, good design for computers as well. You need to build them around human beings and our needs.
Right. 100%. And that's why this computer is such is so universally praised, because it was built for pros. It's the MacBook Pro, and so these were things that pros had complained about for years. It was the keyboards, it was the camera, it was the lack of ports, it was the battery life, and then the touch bar, and then now look where we are now in 2021. Which I should mention too that this is a great computer, but of course, my curiosity didn't end there. I just had to see, well, the M1 Pro and the 14-inch, really nice computer. As I said, step up from my M1 13-inch. But I had this thing in my head that says, what's the M1 Max like? And what's it like in the 16-inch size? So I have this right here as well.
Of course you do.
And this is no surprise to Brett. I've had this for a couple of weeks now.
You take show prep much more seriously than I do. Holy cow.
Well, you and Dolores are the behind the scenes folks, and I appreciate that because after having done that in other situations, I'm really okay not doing that. So I thank you, Brett, and thank you, Dolores Hat Tip. But this is the kind of stuff that I'm genuinely curious about. And so I've had this 16-inch M1 Max for over 2 weeks now. No, probably 3 weeks now. And thank you, holiday return periods. So I even drove to another state to get this computer.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
But it was perfect because I was going to that other state for another reason that same day. And it just so happens that this particular place, about 20 minutes from where I was going, had one in stock. So I have been playing with these two side by side, and I've learned a few things.
Tell us, Don.
So the 16-inch is a beast. This particular one, 4.8 pounds versus the 3.5 pounds of
Whoa.
the 14-inch M1 Pro version in front of me. So that's a big deal. That's a big change. I had the last year's 16-inch and demoed that for a while, and this is about the same size as that. So in terms of the overall height, width, dimensions of it, weight wise, it's definitely up just a tick. Speed wise, blows that thing out of the water, and screen wise, it's a really big step up. Surprisingly, the number one thing I wanted to try on here was Minecraft, and to see what is it like on the 14 Pro versus the 16 Max. Really isn't that much different with the type of mods that I use. I have yet, and I'm going to do this, I have yet to do some video rendering on here. You can find videos all over the internet, all over YouTube of guys doing, and folks doing, not even just guys, but folks doing video renders on both and timing everything. And you can find that out there. It's definitely faster. This is the 32 gigabyte unified memory M1 Max with 1 terabyte SSD, and the 10 core CPU. So this is the other stock. This is the high end stock version you can buy at most Apple stores if they have them in stock. You can even go up to the 64 gig model at some of them too, depending on if they have it in stock. But for a cool $3,500, it's a lot of money. Now, fortunately, I didn't have to pay that because I do get a nice education discount. Nicer on even this version than the 14-inch that I'm speaking to you from. But it's the thing that I found to be my favorite besides the sound, because if you can see the size of the speakers on this device, pretty self-explanatory. The sound is yet even better than on the 14-inch version that I'm speaking to you from.
Yeah.
I'm happy to give a demo right now. So here's a a tune of my own band, actually, that we have released in the last few months.
Ooh, fire away.
So this is playing right out of the speakers on the M1 Max 16-inch in crisp Apple Music lossless.
Nice.
So
sounds good. Sounds really good.
It's a really, really darn good sounding laptop.
Mm-hmm.
That part I like a lot. Also, one thing that I've really found is using this in split screen mode.
Mm-hmm.
You can do it on a 14-inch, and it's usable. It's totally fine. But similar to the difference between using split screen on an 11-inch iPad Pro versus a 12.9-inch iPad Pro, you just have more screen real estate.
Mm-hmm.
So right here, I'm going to go ahead and show you this. And I'm going to go ahead and open up apple.com. Of course, the way to put it into split screen mode is the same as it's been, and it's nothing great, but spacing wise,
wow, yeah,
and I've got totally usable on both sides. If I opened Apple Notes on the left here, and I could be taking notes here easily, it, in a way, this could almost negate the need for Sidecar. And then if you even want, you can still do it.
Right. Don't ever give them that idea that we don't want it, because I'm all about the more displays the better. Yeah.
Oh yes, no, I agree. And of course, because this is the M1 Max, this can connect up to 4 external displays, whereas the Pro version can only connect up to 2. So you could use up all of the available ports on this with displays. Of course, you can't use 120 hertz on out of the HDMI port. Thank you, HDMI 2.0. But of course, they'll probably fix that for the next version whenever that comes out. But just the bigger screen on here, just to me, I'm using this in full. I use my Macs in full screen mode because I'm such an iPad centric person. This screen is too big for full screen mode with only one thing. Maybe a controversial opinion. I don't care, because it is utterly ridiculous. For example, to use our grading platform at our place of work, it looks ridiculous on a screen this big. Google Classroom in full screen mode looks ridiculous on a screen this big. Just my opinion, but I feel like I'm gonna demo some more split screen stuff. I've done it here and there just for my own, just playing around, but I'm going to actually demo using it, because I'm so used to on my 13-inch or my 14-inch just setting up multiple full screens and swiping 4-finger swipe on the trackpad, which that trackpad is humunculous.
It is.
That's not a trackpad. That's a small country. Luxembourg, I'm looking at you. Look at this thing. Vatican City,
too. Bigger than Liechtenstein.
Vatican City. You got nothing on this trackpad other than, the whole thousands of years of history. But anyway, that's not important right now. So that's too big. But whatever. Great. It's there. Fine. No complaints about it. Other people complain about it because external inputs and all that. Okay, fine. Well, as Steve Jobs once said, you're holding it wrong. So, which very infamously bad moment in Apple history. At any rate, because I had that phone, and yeah, it really did that. I
think the 13 does too, but never mind.
Really? Oh,
I do. I do.
That's a conversation for another time.
I feel like if you hold it like this, you ever hold it from just straight up from the bottom and cover the bottom?
No.
Okay. Well, it gets proper shitty if you do that.
We'll have to play around with that.
Yeah.
Go viral with that if that's true. Of course, I don't have a 13. I'm still rocking my 12. Dude, that conversation for another time. Anyway, so to wrap this up, I'm going to do a little bit more in Logic. I'm noticing a speed difference.
Mm-hmm.
I do recordings for my band. I did a few rehearsals on the Pro, and I've done a couple rehearsals now on the Max, and it's definitely faster when it comes to bouncing tracks out. And I mean, these things can both handle way more tracks than I need for my 6-person band, but of course we're miking everything on the drums possible. So it's we usually have about 20 tracks in there, and then when we're doing like recording demos, then we might have 23 or 24 tracks.
Where do you record, just out of curiosity?
One of my bandmates' houses.
Okay.
We transformed.
It turned out really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you to Liam Davis who mixed that for us. I did the initial recording, but he went and mixed and mastered it for us, and yeah, I mean, I'm happy with it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have released it because it took some work to get there. Believe me. I was very picky, as my bandmates say, but that's not important right now. So it's, I don't mind. I like the 16-inch form factor because, as we've talked about on this show before, I'm a one. I know I'm going to have to eat some crow for this. I'm a one computer kind of guy. No matter how many I might be trying at one time, in the end, I don't see myself as a laptop and then desktop kind of guy. I see myself as a laptop, and I want the biggest laptop that I can.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'll tell you, yeah, carrying the 16-inch in my bag does make my bag heavier. My bag is a big bag, so it's no issue fitting in there. That's not the issue at all. And it's definitely bigger. And it's, when I'm carrying it from classroom to classroom, it's heavier. There's no doubt about it. But I don't notice it in the same way I think other people would. And plus, when I'm carrying a bag with 2 Macs and 2 iPads in it at one time, plus a power brick, plus accessories, plus extra cables, I'm not going to notice a difference. I take one Mac out and it's still heavy. So I don't notice a difference, that much of a difference. Other people might, and that's cool if you do. I don't blame you. Am I crazy? 100% for carrying 4 computers in my bag. But that's a different problem. Taking one out, anyone out, it's like, oh, this is light and breezy now. Brett's like, you're nuts, dude. So, at least I'm not MKBHD and carrying a flight case for an iMac Pro across the country. But that's
true. That's true. Hey, I got nothing but respect for you. If you're gonna go out there and test the 2 highest power, aka highest cost MacBook Pros out there. God bless you, Don.
And I didn't even spec them fully out, although probably could have turned these 2 into 1, and then. But anyway, If I do, this is what I've decided. If I do purchase one, it will be a 16-inch. So then the debate just in my head becomes Pro or Max. I know I want at least a terabyte. I had 256 gigabytes. It's a good one. Good one. Brett
There's
sent
no
me a
coming
message.
back from that. I might have just torpedoed the show right there.
Nah, you didn't. Brett sent me a message in our super secret chat, and
yes,
Anyway, so I'm just debating on it because the Max does suffer from a little bit less battery life compared to the Pro and the 16-inch. The 16-inch Pro is going to have the longest battery life. However, for my normal workloads, that is a complete non-issue. And I just got another. Did you send it twice?
No.
Okay.
But I wish I had. So even
it came up twice.
Even running Final Cut, you can make it a day.
I haven't run it. I haven't pushed it. So if you want to send me some things that you need rendered or whatever, and you just send me the files
and just test it out and see if we can wreck that thing. Yeah.
I mean, I'm confident in that the 16, even with the Max here, is going to get better battery life than this 14 Pro, and it's going to render any clips that you send me faster than the 14. Then the 14 is going to do it faster than your MacBook Air or my 13-inch Pro. So yeah, it's definitely faster. But battery life, I haven't put this on a charger since Thursday, and I haven't used it a ton this weekend, but I used it a lot on Friday. And I'm at 53% battery life. When I opened it up when we started our pre-show, it was at 66%. And all it's been doing is just sitting here on. So, that's a lot, an hour and a half being open and losing 12% of battery life. But then again, you do the math. I've got other things open on here. I've got Logic open in the background. I've got several screens going here. Nothing intensive, but it's fine. My point is the battery life is fine.
Yeah. They're doing great things with battery power management lately. This 13 Pro Max is insane with battery life. Yeah.
And of course,
yeah. I had the little.
Can you get 2 days?
I had the Wii, regular Pro 12, and that thing was dead in a half a day. It led me to have to buy that MagSafe battery, which I almost never use now. I'll only do that if I'm going to my day job and then I have a gig or something afterwards. It's going to take the rest of the night. I bring it just in case. But, most of the time, sometimes even when I don't, a 13 Pro Max will last the entire day. So I think, that bigger form factor, aka bigger battery, and you're seeing that, magnified in a larger way with that MacBook Pro. That's awesome. The one thing I worry about is Apple relying too much on bigger size to get to those numbers. You know what I mean? Like bigger chip, we're making it faster by means of just increasing its size and number of cores. Battery, we're just making it physically larger to get that to work,
I don't know. This is the largest battery they can literally put in it. It is a 100 watt-hour battery, which is the largest that you can legally fly with. So they and this happened in the previous generation too. They made the choice to put the largest accessible battery that they could put in it.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, now with these chips being so
Okay,
much
I
more
got you.
powerful, so with these chips being that much more powerful, I mean, it's just physics that the larger the thing, the more battery. I know this is going to get less battery life than the 16-inch M1 Pro would get. And in some circumstances, because this is the 32 core GPU, this is going to get even a significant amount less, because there's also a 24 core option. And from what everything I'm reading is that's actually the best value, best balance of performance, battery life, and cost.
Yeah, but part about being a pro user too is you're probably doing that from the office where you do have access to plug that in.
Right.
Um,
And for most things, aren't you going to do that anyway?
yeah. Again, that's data that we don't have. They probably do, so they see, what person is most likely to plug this in. They can probably break that down by like amount of RAM or you know people most inclined to buy a larger screen size. They have that data subset they can look at. So I don't know. It's too hard to parse without that information. So us mere mortals, we're left to decide. The best balance, and that's tricky.
Right.
That's tricky, but it's a good problem to have because there's so many great options now.
Yeah, there really are. I mean, for what my needs are, this is overkill. There's
Mm-hmm.
no doubt. But then again, I think about it as if I am going to buy one like this, I want it to last a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and get the most bang for my buck in that sense. So, so the 32 gigs of RAM, I've not noticed it, that I can directly speak to, but I haven't run all the benchmark tests and all that because you can find that information. That's to me, it's more like in real world usage, what is it like? And so your mileage may vary. I think more people are going to buy the 14-inch if they're going to buy it. And the 14-inch M1 Max gets the worst battery life of them all, naturally. And plus, Apple does underclock the 14-inch because the thermal system is much better in the 16-inch, so they can really drive that at a much higher consistent clock speed. So for those pros who really need to maximize everything on there, you're going to go 16. Yeah, you're going to pay for the heavier weight, but you're going to get all of the most performance you can get. And even the differences between 16 gigs of RAM, 32 and 64 is right now pretty negligible for most people, even most pros. And then but if you know you need 64 gigs, you know you need it, and you don't even argue with it.
Yeah.
So that's what I've learned thus far. And I will have these two for a little while longer, and I will probably have the 16-inch longer than the 14. Just because ever since I got the 16, I've been using both, but I've definitely tended to pull out the 16 more. So I'll see what else I can find out here, and let y'all know. Hey, Brett, got a question for you. What do you say we shift into nerd gear?
Nerd gear.
How'd I do?
Don, thank you for all that good breakdown, by the way, of those MacBook Pro models. I think if people come to our podcast and they find it and they watch it through and they get to that segment of it, I think that's really helpful to know what you're looking at and the differences between those two models. I really do. Because man, it's hard. It's difficult to with so many good options out there now. And there's the cross compares are really difficult. It's like, do I want the 14-inch with 32 gigs of RAM, or do I want that 16-inch with 16 gigs of RAM and 1 terabyte? And I could get the 14 with 2 terabytes for that price. That's rough. I mean, those are tough compares. So um with all that programmability and possibility for modification, to have some real world information, I think that really helps everybody. So thank you for getting those and sharing those stories with
It's
us, because
my
you
pleasure,
know
man.
yeah,
It's fun.
I think that's good. um yeah, so I don't want to make this necessarily put this all on you tonight, but you shared our other passion sort of to talk about is cars, and we text back and forth a lot about cars.
Mhm.
um I think if we were to narrow it down, not necessarily to a brand like we do with Apple, but to a certain kind of car, I think we both gravitate towards a punchy European, uh high torque, fast acceleration, sporty, and not particularly gigantic type of sports sedan. Am I right? Do we is that what I'm getting over the last few months of talking about this with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm told that there's not a whole lot that a certain three-letter brand. Uh, I mean, there are certainly other cars out there, but there's a certain one that seems to capture our fancy.
Mhm.
And certainly you can speak to that from experience a lot more than I can. Um, but it definitely captures our imagination quite a bit.
Mhm. Mhm.
And something we tend to talk about a lot, which is a
Yeah.
lot of fun.
I've had Volkswagens and one Audi and a couple of BMWs, and I'm not saying that from a position of bragging. I'm just saying, in terms of driving dynamics, those are the kind of cars that I like. And I'm a kid that grew up thinking, I'm only going to buy American. I'm only going to buy those American cars. Um, but what struck me is how unfun they are to drive.
Hmm.
Um, and that may be changing, but for the most part, it's not. Um, it seems like American cars are best when they're big. So if you need something big, if you need a giant people hauler, yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. There are some great American options, and I would look at those. But in terms of zippy sports sedans, still I gravitate towards German cars, um, and maybe increasingly Asian cars, a few brands. I'm not rich enough to afford Italian cars for the most part, so I don't even really factor those in. And it's funny, of all the years of reading car magazines, every time something's on the cover that costs $300,000, I just generally tune it out. I don't even care. I want something that's sort of like in my zone, that I know there's a potential chance I either can afford or might be able to afford at some point. I look at it sort of realistically, and I confine my vision to that. It's like, going from the low end to like what I could possibly get. And those are the cars that I'm interested in and kind of compare against. And so I'm always fascinated by those, and what those car companies are doing, especially with, I don't know about you. Do you look at electrification? Are you interested in that? Um,
Oh, sure,
yeah,
because that's the future, whether we like it or not. That's what's
right,
coming.
right. And the fact that we do like those zippy German cars, which are known for things like driving dynamics, feeling at one with the road, um, exceptional acceleration given smaller size-ish engines, things like that. Um, it'll be interesting to see, if what we would say 10 years from now, in the brave new electrified world. Are we having as much fun driving? Um, I kind of feel like this is our last hurrah and our last chance to have that fun. So when I'm looking at car magazines, I'm thinking of like, all right, if this is the last internal combustion engine car I'm ever gonna have, and it's known for these things, and if this is what makes driving fun for me right now, what am I gonna want? Um, because I know there are Teslas that can like blow Lamborghinis away, and a total soccer mom looking almost minivan thing that's electrified can just waste, the best 911s, so I know that's out there, but speed isn't everything. It's a lot, but it's not everything.
Right.
So are they going to be fun?
That's a great question, and I think that certainly the Europeans are starting to come out with, from what I understand, they're starting to come out with some options that
Hmm.
are kind of the best blend of both of those things. You've got the electrification, but you've also got the precision and the driving dynamics as best as they can. Certainly, it's just going to get better with time.
Hmm.
To satisfy the enthusiast, and it is exciting because infrastructure wise, we have a long way to go
I
when it
hear it's
comes to that.
bad. I mean, I hear it's really bad. I talked to a family friend of ours about their trip downstate to St. Louis and how they took their Tesla Model 3 and drove to St. Louis and felt very vulnerable and at risk that they were going to run out of energy before they made it to a place where they could recharge. Once you
Right.
do get to that recharging station, is it a charging station that's going to take a really long time and increase your trip length by a lot? Or are you going to run into a place that has built up infrastructure and you can recharge your car quickly? How much will that cost to recharge? Those are so many unknowns right now.
Right.
Um, gosh, yeah.
And Tesla being light years ahead of everybody else in that
Mhm,
sense. You type in your, though they don't have Apple CarPlay, you type
mhm,
in your destination. Along the way, they'll show you all the Tesla chargers that are available and
mhm,
charging speeds and all that. So you can really plan out your route in a much uh, much more anxiety reducing way than
mhm,
you can with certainly other options. Um, and so I think, and because they're using their own proprietary stuff, uh, they're light years ahead, and so
mhm.
it's no wonder why that they get draw comparisons to Apple in that sense. Is yeah, it's its own ecosystem, but
Right,
they're
and that could be a
they're
negative too, right? For
right,
sure. Can't you see that? I mean, in the horrible version of that future, as you have to find a not a gas station, but a fueling station that's compatible with your car. It's like, oh my
right,
god, that would be awful.
right. It's a reason that
Yeah.
I didn't really give the thought of to buying a diesel vehicle. It's like
Hmm. Yeah.
it's harder to find. You got to go out of your way for it.
Right. Right.
So yeah, yeah, so I think, yeah, I agree with you that I had an American brand, but I've only had American brands up until this most recent car purchase,
Hmm.
um, and while it's a Japanese brand,
Hmm.
um, I like it. It's certainly the best car I've owned to this
Hmm.
point, and but there's certainly something about the more enthusiasts cars, and
Mhm.
certainly um, most folks, when they think about that, when I think about that, I think about the Europeans, particularly the Germans, and you've
Mhm.
got yeah, you got your Audis, and you've got your Mercedes, and you've got your BMWs, and then of course all the brands up over top of those.
Mhm.
Um, but from everything I understand, like, there's nothing quite like a BMW. And I know that you sir certainly you are very, very fixated on a new offering from BMW.
Mhm. Mhm. And yeah, let's talk about that in the future. To give a little preview of that, I want to talk about snippets of that video that you sent that are a comparison of a several-year-old M2 and the newly released M240i, uh, which is just wowing people left and right. Car reviewers, amateur YouTube reviewers, things like that. People are really enjoying the driving dynamics of this car. I've heard a lot of car reviewers and magazines say that 2 series, for the last bit of time, has been the closest to the true spirit of older BMWs. The connection to the road, the driving dynamics, the size being a bit smaller. That people loved originally about, like, let's say the 2002 or the original 3 series, things like that. That really, helped BMW make its mark. And then now this M240i comes out, and it has a lot of those attributes. A small-ish car that has a ton of power and is just a crap load of fun to drive. So yeah, I think it'd be fun to talk about that maybe on our next show. We could find out some more information about that. We can compare it to, cars we've driven, or sampled, or anything like that. Um, yeah, and maybe get some input from you. Maybe you've been in the seat of one. Maybe you have a supercar at home. I don't know. Uh, Tell us a little bit about what you like to drive and what are important to you on your daily commute, when you're out with your family. What are things that you're thinking about? Does fun even play into it at all? Um, I read, one of the magazines I read a lot is Car and Driver, and the reason I like that is because uh, one of their criteria that their reviewers really seem to look at, even if unofficially, and it's not ranked on that, but is the fun aspect of it. Um, that was the thing that early BMWs were kind of a wake up call to car magazine reviewers in this country, because they were incredibly fun to drive. Maybe they didn't win on horsepower every time, and especially those early ones didn't. Um, but they were loads of fun on the road. Um, yeah, that's where I'm coming from.
And that, as you said, I think that because that's going to be feels like it's going to become lost a lot
Mm,
more as time goes on. Um, there's something to be said for the companies that
mhm,
are trying to keep that in going. I mean, um,
right.
the GR86, that the new GR86 from Toyota, and the Super
Mhm,
BRZ are affordable rear wheel drive, offered in manual cars that are fun, and they're 228 horsepower,
mhm,
fine. Naturally aspirated engines, um, manuals, but you can also get them in automatics. Nice interiors, really
mhm,
only for 2 adults. You can fit 2 people in the back in a pinch. Small people.
mhm,
But those to me sound like fun weekenders / track cars.
Mhm.
And whereas I think you and I, we both have families. We're both kind of
Mhm.
interested in uh, the practicality aspect, and
Mhm.
what can it be for a daily driver too. And I think
Right.
there's a lot of fun out there to be had.
Yeah, and if I can just before we close, if I can just dog on American cars too, it's amazing. Even today, um, occasionally I'll see an American car that I'm like, oh wow, that looks pretty good. I don't know, could this be the one that lures me back? And I go and I find out about it, and it's like, oh, it's got 300 horsepower. Holy cow. And then you dig down a little further on the statistics. It's like, what's that 0 to 60?
Mhm.
Oh my god, it's 8.9 seconds? What? Or something crazy like that, and it's like,
Yeah.
what are they doing over here? And it's just because, in a certain way, sort of the Buick driving dynamic has won over in this country in terms of American cars, that a fluffy, cushy ride, uh, from an engine with a significant amount of power, uh is the preferred choice of the manufacturer. It's slow off the bat. It's slushy, uh, but that's sort of become like the American thing. Are there exceptions? Yes. Is there
Of course.
a universe where the Cadillac is the dominant brand? Yeah, I mean they're sort of the only ones kind of carrying the torch of fun, I think, in a car over here. Um, but then you look at something like a four-cylinder uh, BMW M135i that's only available in Europe, and is 0 to 60 in like 4.2 seconds or something like that, and it's like, holy cow. Uh, I mean, it doesn't even have, it's not even comparable in power to some of the big sedans over here, but you're 0 to, yeah, I don't know, fast in virtually no time, and
Right.
life's too short not to have fun. With
I
anything, with computing, that's why we're here and why we have a podcast. And with things, like mundane things can still be fun while you're on this planet.
100%.
I don't know. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. I agree with you, man. That's a big reason I changed from buying an SUV to buying a more sporty sedan. Is I needed to
Hmm.
consider my needs, but my family needs and my hauling needs. But I wanted there to be fun and
Yeah.
involved, and um, yeah, I agree with you. We as a culture tend to prefer bigger, cushier, higher um riding
Hmm.
things. Power is great too, but it's like nobody, there's only a small segment of cars that are like sports cars, your Camaros and
Hmm.
your Mustangs and similar, that are about that. Um and that is going to be a dying breed. And sure, your Tesla Model 3 can go as fast as, or faster than the 135 that you're talking about.
Hmm.
um but then that's straight line speed that doesn't
Hmm.
capture the whole thing.
Right.
um so yeah, so I can see that we're gonna begin a celebration of what that is in terms of a vehicle, and why it's fun,
Hmm.
and we're gonna nerd out on that just as much as we nerd out on any of this. So we call it the Nerd Ensemble, but there's a reason why we kept it a little bit more open-minded, because we knew there were going to be other things that we would branch off to be nerdy about.
Hmm. Absolutely.
So, well, so that was our first edition of Nerd Gear. To infinity and to bed. Oh wait,
Hmm.
that's cool. That's really cool. I love that car. When I had so many models of that
Oh
car
my
when I was a kid.
gosh.
And I still see one on the road every once in a while. I'm just like, wow,
It
that was a
still looks
horrible
good.
car with
It was a
just
horrible car.
but
It was
so
so
cool
slow. Yeah.
and dangerous and stainless steel. But there's nothing's looked like it since.
If you retro modded one of these with an electric engine, it would be maybe the perfect form factor. I think this form factor is still sexy as hell.
It holds up for sure. Well, we want to thank you all for participating in the show, and thank you all for tuning in tonight. Again, big shout out to Brett for his work behind the scenes, and of course we mentioned Dolores. Without them, this show wouldn't go. She's back to say her goodbyes for tonight.
Yep.
We will be back soon to talk more follow up on these MacBook Pros and certainly more nerd gear for you. Nerd gear, which sounds like third gear, and that's where Brett came up with it, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, y'all be well. Interact with us on our Facebook page and we'll love to get to more of that. And YouTube now, we're expanding ever so carefully off into the distance. And Brett, man, it's a pleasure. We'll see you soon.
As always, to you too, sir.
Thank you. And we'll catch you all in the next episode. Peace.
Sure.